This is a combat mission shock force level called Route Lightning. In this mission, Taskforce Thunder's 2nd Mechanized Battalion is leading the attack west towards the Syrian city of Dar al-Asud. The entire American task force is headed along this road, so the Syrians have accordingly set up ambushes and defenses to slowly advance. This mission is essentially a wide out in the open probing attack. And starting off, I'm given just a scout platoon, a Bradley with a fire team, small fire team, and 2 Humvees with advanced optics for spotting, and the command element, which is a Humvee with a 50 cal. And it says in the briefing that they wanted me to use the Humvee with the optic to spot the enemy before they could spot me, because they could see further than the enemy, at least in theory. But I haven't had any success with using them in that fashion, and it really wouldn't make sense for it to work like that anyway, considering the relatively small engagement range of the map. Since it is a day map, you know, and we're out in the open, I don't think it's really necessary to have those sort of optics. Maybe if the terrain was flat, it would be useful, but there's some line of sight issues that make it difficult to see very far. In about 5 minutes, a tank platoon should be joining up, and behind them should be a striker platoon. So I basically, at the beginning here, I just want to do some scouting to see where the enemy is, to probe the defenses, but not really engage them. So I sent the 1 Humvee with the optic to the left flank on hunt mode. This way he would stop moving once he detected an enemy. And the others I sent to the right. Take up an overwatch position on the right flank because the terrain's a little bit higher, so it will allow me to have downward view. And the highway is being bombarded continuously by mortars. And the Humvee on the left that I sent in, the recon Humvee, gets taken out by an ATGM from a firing line far to the west, along a ridge. At this point, I realized that I was not going to do much probing at all, and I was basically just going to wait for the rest of the company to arrive. Because if they do have ATGMs, I basically can't use my vehicles at all. I can't use the Bradley that I have to provide cover fire. One of those ATGM rockets will crack open the Bradley quite easily. One really annoying thing that I realized is that if you have a unit in hunt mode, they'll stop moving if they see artillery. I didn't want them to stop moving until they ran into an actual enemy target. So I just had to use the move command instead. So again, I'm attempting to use this Humvee to do some reconnaissance, but it's never effective. Right now I should be able to see everything ahead of my position, but it doesn't seem to be actually giving me an advantage. I moved the vehicle crew from the first Humvee that got disabled. I moved the vehicle crew into a building. You can't really tell from this level of zoom, but far to the west on the ridge, where the ATGMs supposedly are, they're dropping smoke, or there's artillery actually dropping smoke on that ridge line, so I can't actually see what's occurring on the ridge. So as soon as I move my Bradley up to try to cover the second recon Humvee, I come under fire from ATGMs and RPGs, so I immediately withdraw that Bradley, and at this point all I can do is really wait for my support to arrive. Right now I'm just ranging in the ridge in the event that I am fired upon. I can return fire. So there's an enemy presence. There's about a platoon of enemy infantry in the trenches by this little waiting area here in the center. There's 2 heavy machine gun positions that are opening fire on my Humvee. And as we'll see shortly, there's 2 fire teams of infantry. Right now the best I can do is just suppress them and wait for backup to arrive. My force is far too small to do anything with. So I dismount the fire team, scout fire team, and I was going to do a foot patrol of that shrubbery directly in front of the Bradley. I wanted to make sure there was no elements hiding there that were going to ambush me when I attempted to pass. So the tank platoon has arrived. But the mechanized infantry platoon, the strikers, they have not arrived yet, so I don't really want to do much until they arrive. Otherwise I can't really exploit, the probing attacks that I do make. Just gives the enemy a chance to shift their forces around. So, there's another enemy platoon on the right flank in the opposite set of trenches. And again, I'm under fire from the left flank. They have machine gun positions there. Try to move forward the command Humvee to suppress the machine guns, but they're unable to see them from where they are. So I decided to move up the tanks, because that's the only real alternative I have to keeping my position safe. on the left flank with my Bradley. This mission would have been a cakewalk if they would have given me artillery. Since I have 0 artillery support, I have to assault these trenches from the front, and since there is no maneuver room and I have to stick along the highway, I have to attack them directly from the front. Basically, just roll my vehicles up and, you know, dismount. There's also reports of enemy tanks in the area, so I'm expecting contact with some T-62s and T-72s, although they are not here at the moment. Although, speak of the devil, they just arrived as soon as I say that. And I immediately pop smoke on my tanks and exchange fire. Bradley opens fire with a tow missile. Have the Abrams tanks in the center exchanging fire. And at this range, those older Soviet tanks are really no match for the Abrams. The only way that you can really inflict casualties on the Abrams is to hit it at extremely close ranges. Otherwise, the cannon on the T-62, the early T-72s won't really do much at all. Simply not powerful enough. So my platoon of strikers has arrived, mechanized infantry. I'm going to move them forward behind the tanks and prepare for an assault on the trenches. Still under continuous mortar fire, but it's having little effect. Although one shell does hit on the right and it kills 2 of my men from the recon platoon. I probably should have put them back in the Bradley. The assault's beginning on the right side of the trench. The platoon of Syrian regulars there. Tanks are leading the way, followed by the mechanized elements. I use heat rounds from the Abrams on the trench on the left to suppress the enemy presence there. Pop smoke, dismount, and assault the trenches. Tell the strikers to light up the trench on the right so that we can advance undercover. So there's 3 or 4 heavy machine gun positions on the left and a few fire teams of infantry. They're trying to stop my assault by firing upon my assaulting fire teams, but they're being suppressed by the tanks. At this point, I was getting a little worried about wasting all of my tanks' fragmentation rounds. I know that I needed to attack the rear Syrian position on that ridge, so I was really concerned about using up all my fragmentation rounds, the heat rounds. So we're establishing a base of fire here on the right. Now that the right trench has been secured, in preparation for an attack on the left flank. So there's more ATGM fire coming from the ridge in the rear, and they're basically safe where they are because they're entrenched and they're far away. So even if they weren't entrenched, they would still be a threat because they're so far. The only thing that could really hit them at that range is the main gun of the Abrams. And as I said, I really don't want to waste that ammunition just for suppression, because I'm going to have to assault that ridge at some point, and I'm going to need the shells for actually fighting and destroying the enemy. I'm going to do the same thing on the trench on the left. I'm going to move my tanks forward to basically exchange fire with the enemy so that my strikers are not vulnerable. Then I'm going to rush up my strikers, suppress the trenches, and then assault. I considered running across in the open. I attempt to do that right now, actually. But I realized that I couldn't effectively suppress the entire trench because there were so many enemy machine guns. And I would probably have 5 or 6 casualties if I were to do that out in the open. So instead I just load my guys back up in the strikers and prepare for a mechanized attack. Up taking most of the fire teams from the right flank to help in the assault. I dismount one of the M240 machine gun teams and I send them into the trenches on the right to keep the base of fire active so that I don't really lose the bonuses of having a base of fire there. The other M240 team I intend to keep on the left flank there's more tanks coming down the center. And my tanks are in a perfect position to fire upon them. Pop smoke while my teams dismount. And I make sure that my front armor is facing the west with my tanks because I was concerned about taking ATGM hits. And that decision to turn my tanks was probably a really good decision because one of my tanks takes 2 hits from ATGMs. Pop smoke to protect tanks. And after this wall clears, this wall of smoke clears, the attack on the trench proper will commence. Actually, I think that those might be recoilless rifles or something up on the ridge. They might not be ATGMs. I don't know. So my strikers are beginning to engage and suppress the trench on the left as I prepare the infantry teams to attack. There was a larger enemy presence here than I actually expected. There was 3 fire teams and 3 heavy machine gun teams. Most of the enemy did not fire upon my advancing forces until they were actually within about 50 meters. That being said, when I did attack the left trench, I believe I did not receive a single casualty. Mainly because the suppression was so effective. Yeah, the 3 or 4 strikers is firing into the trench, plus the tanks and the assaulting teams. It's difficult to actually accomplish anything for the enemy. So the ATGMs are still sighting me on the hill there, taking pot shots, but not hitting any other of my tanks. I'm sure I'm moving up the scout platoon. We've also moved up the command element and an M240 team. I'm going to set up the M240 on the furthest extent of the trench. They should be just within firing range of the ridge. And then I'm going to use them to help suppress the ridge for my final attack. I believe the ridge is about 950 meters from this current position. Yeah, it's 950 meters away. Still taking pot shots at me. Alright, well, enjoy the rest of the video. From this point on, it's basically just a massive mechanized and mobile attack on the Syrian final trench system. Thank you.